Okay, calm down.
I'm going to bring on Said Arikat. I'm so excited to have him on because I watch him frequently. He is a Palestinian journalist and Washington bureau chief of Al-Quds, a daily newspaper which has been published out of East Jerusalem uninterruptedly since 1951. In addition to his work as a journalist, Arikat is an adjunct professor at the American University. He served as the United Nations Chief Spokesman in Iraq from 2005 to 2010. He's a familiar face at U.S. State Department press briefings, where he's engaged in sometimes contentious exchanges with State Department spokespersons. So, without further ado, Said Arikat. Hi.
Thank you. Hello there, Katie. Thank you for having me.
Joining. Of course, yes.
I'm honored.
Why don't you start out telling us actually about your background? How did you become the journalist that you are today?
Well, that's a very interesting story because, my real background, I'm an industrial designer. So, I went to the same program from which Steven Spielberg dropped out. I always say that. So, that's my background. Then, I came basically to do some political work on behalf of the Palestinian community in America. We had a small group, and I was elected. I was born and raised in Jerusalem in Al-Quds, which is right outside of Jerusalem. It's the place that was designated to be the Palestinian capital in East Jerusalem. Anyway, so I came to go to college in San Francisco, which I did, and it's the rest is history. I came in the '80s to do some work on behalf of our community, and then the war in Lebanon happened, and I went there. I went just to see what was going on, and then I met my wife. So that was in 1982. She was a physician in the siege during the siege of Beirut. So and I came back to Washington and started doing journalism ever since.
Well, tell us about your family, where they're from, where they had to move, if they were able to stay where they're from. What was their journey?
Well, my family is from the West Bank, from Al-Quds. We are, part of East Jerusalem. It's really where the wall goes highest. My parents, my brothers came to this country to go to college and stayed and got married and had their kids and so on. My parents, both died in Al-Quds, so that's, yeah. So I still have lots of family in the Jerusalem area and in Jericho. One of the chief negotiators was my cousin Said Arikat. He was well known. He passed away 3 years ago, and so it was our family was actually going back and forth between the Bay Area and Jerusalem, and Jericho. So this they have done this. The Arikats have done this for a long time, even before 1948. So, but my family still is in that area in Al-Quds. My extended family, my first cousins, and so on, and in Jericho. So that's my connection to the land.
And what's life like for them there?
It's horrible, especially now. We still, in fact, my brother and I still own our home there, and constantly it's being, transgressed by nearby settlers and by the Israeli army. They come to the village, they arrest people. They went in a couple of weeks ago and they killed 3 people in my village. So it's a daily thing. There is a checkpoint right at the entrance of the village that separates, I guess, the Gethsemane where it is. Where Bethany is. Where Bethany is. Okay, well, it's right at the junction between Al-Quds and Bethany. There is a checkpoint from which everybody has to go through or not go through.
Right.
On one side, and on the other side, it's going to Bethlehem. So there's a great deal of, especially with the checkpoint. A couple of years ago, on June 24th, 2020, a young cousin of mine was on his way to pick up his mother from a hair salon, of all places, and he got shot dead at the checkpoint, and they still hold his body. Last June, for instance, a young cousin of mine was shot dead in cold blood, Ahmed Arikat, on June 22nd. His body is still there. The Israelis have not turned back this to his family just to torment them. There are 67 cases like this. So I just want to ask you, I mean, what are you doing different than, let's say, your predecessor? The embassy remains in Jerusalem despite being against international law. The office remains closed. Resuming aid to UNRWA has not taken place. I mean, I can go on and on and on. So how are you different from the previous one?
Said, we as an administration do indeed look forward to deepening our engagement with the Palestinian people and the Palestinian leadership. I'd rather not make comparisons.
I mean, these are some of the things that people endure on a daily basis. His parents still can't have closure because they cannot bury him.
And what is that? Why does Israel do that? Is that just part of their dehumanization? Do they have an alleged reason for doing that, for not releasing the bodies?
They never say why. There's about 800 dead Palestinians that they hold. Some have died in prison, but a lot of them were killed at the checkpoints or in what Israel claims to be confrontations and so on. I don't really know. I mean, it's an amazing thing that you hang on to a dead person. I don't know. Perhaps for future negotiations or something, trade. I don't know. It's terrible. It's kind of macabre,
And in Islam, are supposed to bury it's supposed to be shortly after the death.
Immediately after the death. What they do,
okay.
they wash and it's the same thing in Judaism. So it's you bury the dead. You have like the prayer over them and so on. Then you bury them, and then you begin whatever rituals that you have. And it is really quite disturbing for families not to be able to bury their sons, their parents, their whoever, because of, in this case, because of political kind of enforcement.
So disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
It's sadistic.
It is awful.